Today, thank you. We've gathered staff from across our team to count down the top wins of the year for UV and for feminist culture change, and give you a peek into what went into those wins, as well as the fights ahead for 2024, how UV is going to campaign and win next year, and how you can plug in. And of course, there'll be plenty of time for questions and discussion. So enough of me. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Elisa to kick us off on our top 10 wins. Go for it, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Kaylin. Thank you all for being in community with us today. We have a packed house and we have a little treat for you after much internal discussion, because working with you, we won a lot this year and we had to condense that down to our 10 favorite wins. So we're going to start with win number 10. So in addition to being the content director here at UltraViolet, I'm also a campaign director for our Survivor Justice campaign. And I can tell you there's
Is Elisa frozen?
Elisa, I think you're a little frozen.
a law professor,
There we go.
Victoria Burke, had conceived and drafted this piece of legislation that would protect survivors from retaliatory defamation lawsuits. And, you know, California is a big state, a lot of bureaucracy. And we were there from the beginning as, pressuring state lawmakers until the very end, when we, along with our organizational partners, National Women Law Center and equal rights advocates, pushed this bill over the finish line. And even though Gavin Newsom sadly had vetoed some progressive legislation, he passed this one, and it's a significant bill. On to win number 9.
Hey, everyone.
And I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Jaya.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jaya Ayer, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a campaign director here at UltraViolet, where I lead our gender disinformation campaign work. I think I may not be pinned, but I'm not totally sure. But regardless, I'm going to just get started talking. Okay, there I am. I'm going to get started talking about win number 9, which was UltraViolet mobilizing over 15,000 members to demand Apple drop the misogynist Andrew Tate's Real World app from its app store. And we won. Apple removed the app. As some of you may know, having received emails from me, Andrew Tate's app, quote unquote, the real world, as it's named, it used to be called Hustlers University, was actually pulled from Google weeks before Apple decided to pull the app for violating its policies in response to allegations of Tate running a pyramid scheme through the app that was specifically targeting young men and boys as young as 6, and really kind of spreading deeply misogynistic, homophobic, and transphobic content to these young men and young boys. But we were able to hold Apple accountable. We were able to get the platform, get the company to take action and remove Tate's toxic and dangerous app from its store. And soon after our demands went out, Apple followed through and pulled the app. And thanks to your dedication, we're holding misogynists and transphobes accountable, and we're continuing that work while making sure the internet becomes a more feminist space for all of us. And then I'm going to go to win number 8, which was Meta. We got more than 16,000 of us to demand Meta expand and expedite end-to-end encryption on Messenger, which is one of their messaging platforms, when police began using its data to arrest abortion seekers. Over the past year, we worked with our partners to demand this from Meta, which was formerly known as Facebook, and to make sure that it not only expanded end-to-end encryption, which is making sure that all messages are safe on Messenger platforms, and not only safe, but protected from law enforcement, from data brokers, things like that, all those scary things. But expedite the expansion of end-to-end encryption in states where the threat of of doxing and data mining, particularly for those seeking abortion care, is highest and heavily restricted or illegal. We demanded that Meta expedite this rollout, and we're continuing to make those calls, but we have seen kind of expansion of this protection and encryption. Our calls really came out after that horrifying case in Nebraska where mother and daughter were arrested and sentenced for direct message correspondence on Messenger regarding the teen's decision to seek an abortion. And this violation of privacy was only possible because of Meta's lack of end-to-end encryption, allowing law enforcement to use this mother and daughter's private messages as proof of the mother serving as an accomplice to her daughter's decision to have an abortion. And, you know, as pro-abortion advocates, as feminists, we know this is wrong, and we know that privacy is of the utmost importance when making a personal medical decision like this. And so, yeah, we were able to mobilize, and we're continuing to advocate for this really critical need. I'll pass it over to the next win.
Hey, everybody. I'm Kathy Plate. I'm the Managing Director of Growth and Member Engagement at UltraViolet. And as many of you might know, UltraViolet has a long history of calling out sexual abusers in professional sports and how leagues have enabled sexual abusers in sports. Back in 2015, we successfully pressured the NFL to change their domestic violence policy, but then since then, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has basically failed to uphold his own policy and also failed to protect women working for the NFL. And we have run many campaigns over the years pressuring him to do the right thing. This year, we did a pressure campaign to suspend Philadelphia Eagles player Joshua Stills and to bar him from playing in the Super Bowl, given that he faced serious accusations of sexual abuse. And the good news was that he was suspended, and we will continue to name and call out that abusers have no place to play in professional sports. We've also done campaigns this year on the NBA, and this is an ongoing area of work for us. Go on to the next win. Another sports one. Folks might remember that the state of Florida was exposed for collecting data on high school athletes' menstrual cycles, which was concerning both for trans athletes and given the overturning of Roe v. Wade, having the data about your menstrual cycles could be used in a variety of ways, including criminalizing folks. And let's just be real, we should not be monitoring students' periods. So after pressure from UltraViolet members and many folks on the ground in Florida, the state finally reversed course. So we were very happy to see that. And I will also say it's possible that there are other states that are doing something similar. And so it's something that we've looked into. And later I'm going to be talking about future work, and this is something that could be on the horizon again. And I'll pass it on to win number 5.
Hi all, Elisa again. So on the abortion front, we have been fighting at all levels on the state and federal, in the private sector and in the public sector. And this was an example of a typical campaign that we had both in the state and the federal levels. But very early on, when we saw that judicial nominee Hector LaSalle was up for a promotion by, ironically, a Democratic governor, we highlighted, along with many organizations on the ground, about his favorable ruling towards crisis pregnancy centers, or these fake abortion clinics, where he basically shielded them from any accountability from the New York Attorney General. So we said there is absolutely no reason for the Democrats to cave in any way by promoting a judge like this one. And we had our New York members write to their state senator to reject this nomination. And we won. Next slide.
Thanks. All right, so I think folks are going to remember this one. This was probably one of our biggest campaigns this year. Basically, in the aftermath of Roe v. Wade being overturned, anti-abortion activists have just been on the lookout for more ways to ban abortion and make it harder for people to access abortion care. And one of the targets for this was the abortion pill mifepristone. And there is currently a legal case winding its way through the courts, which will likely be heard by the Supreme Court next year. And fingers crossed that we win. But currently, mifepristone is still legal. And what we found out was that Walgreens was not going to be distributing the pill everywhere that it was legal. And so we launched a major campaign to push the company. Tens of thousands of you, if not hundreds of thousands, signed petitions, called on Walgreens. We put up this beautiful billboard that you can see here. We can drop links in the chat to the current petition. I can do that as soon as I wrap up. And we have also run a billboard pushing pharmacy associations to ensure distribution everywhere that it can be distributed. And Walgreens has now said they will distribute everywhere that the pill is legal. We're going to push major pharmacies to carry it everywhere. It should really be accessible across the country. The good news is independent pharmacies actually are currently carrying mifepristone in many places. And so it's time for the big companies to step up and start distributing. And we appreciate everybody here who has already added your name. Like I said, I'll add a link if you'd still like to add your name. And we're glad to see that it's moving in the right direction and hopeful of a good outcome from the Supreme Court case next year. And I'll pass it on to number 3.
Hey everyone, back again. So number 3 was we won getting rid of CEO of CNN, Chris Litch, who knowingly broadcasted lies and conspiracies on national television when he invited Donald Trump to do his own presidential town hall. On May 11th, CNN hosted this town hall with former President Trump, enabling the misogynist and one of our nation's top disinformers a very public platform to spread lies, hate, and inaccurate information more than a year before the 2024 presidential elections. Then CEO Chris Litch made this call seemingly as a last-ditch effort as the network's ratings had tanked over his short tenure, despite his own commentators stating the lack of fact-checking and other necessary pieces to hold the former president accountable. Litch still went through with the plan. But at every stop of the way, UltraViolet members held CNN accountable, from nearly 20,000 UltraViolet members calling for Litch to be fired, to calling out CNN and Litch with in-person actions outside the town hall in New Hampshire and CNN headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, with billboards. We were able to change the tide, and we actually got CNN to fire Litch a month later. This win comes after years of our media accountability, organizing, including criticizing CNN's platforming of conspiracy theorists and promotions of misogynistic figures as their commentators. With this victory, we're setting our sights on the far right streaming platform Rumble, which is
sure do whatever it takes for you, because that's one thing you can be.
I'll restate my sentence. With this victory, we're setting our sights on the far right streaming platform Rumble, which has partnered with NBC to stream all the RNC or Republican debates. We know this campaign will be hard, but we already have the support of over 30,000 UltraViolet members, and we are determined to make sure that more far-right platforms like Rumble and similar social media platforms are held accountable and are not allowed to be validated by mainstream media and journalists. And I'll pass it over to number 2.
Thank you, Jaya. So this number 2 was very exciting for us from the get-go, since journalist E. Jean Carroll had filed a defamation lawsuit against Donald Trump for lying about assaulting her at a dressing room. we have had her back. We actually collected tens of thousands of signatures and delivered them in person with our partners. Women's March, we rallied in front of the Department of Justice in DC after Merrick Garland, our Attorney General, had said that it looked like they were going to shield Trump because of his standing as a previous president. And not only did E. Jean Carroll win her defamation lawsuit, the Department of Justice also said that they would not shield Trump from any defamation or any related lawsuits. So it looks like he had defamed her again at that CNN town hall. So we may get a second round. Now for win number 1. All right, y'all. Thanks to all of you, all of us. We won big. Feminist Values won big at the ballot box. We won both chambers of the state house in Virginia. We won the governorship in Kentucky, and we won every single ballot measure as we did in 2022. So with that said, please lift your beverage of choice to toast our fierceness. And with that said, we have another treat for you. We're going to give you a sneak peek as to what to expect from us in some of our upcoming battles in 2024.
Hey all, I am back. So thanks, Elisa. Now that we've gone over wins for this year, I do want to give a little preview of what we're planning and thinking about for next year. Obviously, 2024 is going to be a big election year, and we want to lean in to testing some deeper organizing approaches next year. The first test that we're going to do is a project in North Carolina to run a persuasion campaign focused on shifting the narrative around the 12-week abortion ban in the state. One thing we're seeing both in North Carolina and I think across the country is that folks, including Trump himself, are trying to paint, frankly, terrible, terrible bans and restrictions as being moderate, which they are not. And so we want to take that on, both narratively and by organizing folks. And we're going to take lessons learned from that project to do some mobilizing with single women voters in the state. And depending on how those go, we're hoping to expand to do more work to organize single women voters as a powerful voting bloc this year, as well as to take on that narrative around what is considered moderate, when we know that any of those bans on abortion are anything but moderate. We're also going to be taking on structural barriers to feminist power building, from voting rights to defending our democracy and ensuring that social media platforms and media outlets are held accountable for their complicity in building the power of the misogynist right-wing ecosystem. The proliferation of the men's rights movement impacts our daily lives, from sexual harassment and rape culture to attacks on our democratic systems, to abortion bans and opposition to critical policies, including paid leave and childcare and education, in ways that contribute to women's dependency on men rather than publicly backed and funded programs and policies. So there's a bunch of big picture structural work that we're planning to work on next year. And we plan to expose and tell the story of the harms and architects behind the proliferation of the men's rights movement online, and to limit the spread of harmful masculinity on the internet and in the media. We know that gaming is one space where misogyny and white nationalism is spreading, and we're going to work to make those platforms safer for women and to disrupt the radicalization pipeline that's happening there. We're also going to continue calling for social media platforms to reform and combat the spread of harmful disinformation. I think we all know the impacts that disinformation on social media can have in our elections. And so we're going to do our very best to make sure that that is countered next year. And we're also going to defend women who are running for office who face a disproportionate amount of disinformation and hate online. And abortion is going to appear both in state houses and the national ballot, and on ballots in states including Arizona, Florida, Missouri, and Nebraska. And together, we're hoping to build the power of the movement next year, and we hope that you will join us. Next, we're going to go into, I know a few of you have already started putting questions in the chat. So we're going to move next to our Q&A, and I'll hand it over to Elisa for that.
Wonderful. I did notice, can we, first of all, stop recording? Yes, thank you. This is the time where we stop recording, so people are free to ask what questions and make comments. Mary?